Good evening everyone, I'm Kevin and today I'm going to talk about the favorite series I don't talk about. I mentioned this series briefly in my tier ranking all the romance books I've ever read, and the series is Gives Light by Rose Christo. I have here the first 4 books because these are the 4 books that I love the most of the series. I didn't really like the 5th book, and so I didn't pick up the 6th, but these I really loved, and so I'm going to talk about why I don't talk about them. So let's just start with what is the series about. So the first book is Gives Light, and this book is about this teenage boy called Skylar. It's summer and his dad is missing, so he calls the cops or something like that, and he files for a missing person, and because the only living relative that he has is his grandma, so his dad's mom, and she lives at a reservation because she's indigenous. Skylar is half indigenous, his dad is indigenous, but his mom was white. And so Skylar is taken to this reservation to live with his grandmother and a culture that he never really grew up with, in a way. And the thing with Skylar is that he grew up at this reservation, but the reason that he moved and the reason his dad moved away with him is because at this reservation, when Skylar was a baby, his mom was murdered. And the night that his mom was murdered, the murderer tried to kill Skylar as well. And because of that, Skylar has these scars on his throat, and because his throat was cut open, he can't speak. So he is completely mute, he can't use his vocal cords at all. So he relies on sign language and body language and written word and things like that. And I thought that the disability representation in this was really good with Skylar, and that you got to read a book from the perspective of a character who can't speak verbally, but instead used sign language, and you get to follow his thoughts and learn about this reservation and the life on this reservation, and like what that life is like. And this is of course fiction, and this specific reservation is a fictional reservation. It's called the Nettle Reserve, and they are Shoshone. There is also at the back of this, not this specific one, some of these books have a Shoshone glossary, which I think is really cool that you have that as well. And there are Shoshone words throughout the series, and I just thought that this was really fun to read. This is a fun YA series to read. Something that I really love in books is culture and learning about life in different parts of the world and different cultures, different experiences basically. That is something that really pulled me into this, but something that really intrigued me was the fact that this book is also a male-male romance. Skylar is gay, and in this reservation, a lot of people at this reservation are of course still struggling with the trauma that was the murder of both Skylar's mom, but the murderer killed multiple women, so there was like a serial killer killing women, and Skylar becomes friends with the son of the murderer, who is called Raphael. And Raphael is one of the best literary characters that I have ever read. He is such a beautiful character. He is so well done, and I relate to him a lot. I just really love him. And his name is Raphael Gives Light. And I just really love the relationships in this book or in this series, and all of the characters stand out. The relationship between Skylar and his dad, the relationship between Skylar and his grandma, Skylar and his new friends, how they react to him not being able to talk, the cultures in this reserve, the struggles that they go through on a daily basis for being indigenous and living on a reservation. I just think all of those things were really fun to read, and I really just adore this series. And the romance in it is also very, very cute. I love it for that as well. And then there is the question, if I love it so much, then why haven't I talked about it? Well, Rose Christo, you can't really see her name here. Rose Christo, she has... When I started reading this series, she was open about being indigenous. But there has come allegations towards her within the past few years about her not actually being indigenous, and that this is cultural appropriation, that she pretends to be indigenous. And that's not really like, for me, I'm not gonna sit here and say that someone is not what they say they are. Like, if she says that she is indigenous, then how can I say that she's not, you know? And of course, she might not be indigenous, and she might be, I don't know. But I didn't want to talk about this as if it's own voices, if it's not own voices, and if I can't say 100% it's own voices, because I don't know if it is. And then another thing is that with these allegations towards her not being indigenous, is the representation in this actually respectful? Is it good representation of what it's like to live at a reservation, of being indigenous in the US? I don't know. I am not indigenous, so I can't speak on what that is like, what that experience is like. And I have searched for several years now. I have looked into indigenous readers, but I haven't found any indigenous reviewers of this book series, so I can't verify that it's good representation or not. I haven't felt good within like this past year that I have been on BookTube since I started my channel. I didn't feel like, should I talk about this book series when I don't know if it is own voices for the first thing, or if it's actually good representation? And I assume that she was indigenous because she said that she was indigenous, and because in some of the books there are Shoshone glossaries, so like the vocabulary Shoshone to English, and some like anecdotes and historical things, explanations connected to being indigenous in the US. Powwows and indigenous historical figures, things that happened in the past that you don't learn unless you're indigenous. And there were like a lot of stuff like that that I thought, okay, she is indigenous because she knows those things, but I can't be 100% sure that she actually knows those things because she lived those experiences, learned from her own time at a reservation. I don't know that. And so because of that, I love this book. I love this series really, really much, but I haven't wanted to talk about it because what if I recommend this series and the representation is awful? The Shoshone words in the glossaries at the back are gibberish and not accurate, and the things, the way that the reservation is portrayed is not true, and you know, stuff like that. That's what made me very hesitant. Also, I am not American, so I definitely have no idea if it's good representation and respectful, anything like that. I don't know, and that's why I haven't talked about this book series. I am going to continue to reread this series, and I'm going to continue loving this series, and I'm going to continue looking and keeping myself updated if I will find a book or a review of someone who is indigenous talking about the series. But this is the first video that I ever make where I actually talk about this in detail. Do I consider this one of my favorite series? Yes. Do I consider this one of my favorite YA series? Yes. This is also the series that got me into reading. I read this in 2020, it must have been 2015. Yeah, 2015 I read this. I started reading in 2015 after having read fan fiction for a year. I felt like I want to read books. I had just read fan fiction. Like, fanfics were what got me into reading. And reading fanfics, I was like, I want to read books now. So I got a few books, this among some of those, and I love this. This is the first series that I read, that I devoured, and that I was obsessed with for a very long time. I don't think I've ever been as obsessed with a book series as I was with this series. So this series will always have a very special place in my heart. But now you know why I haven't really talked about this book or this series at all on my channel. Please let me know what your thoughts are on this. Would you do the same thing, or do you think that you should separate the author from the books? Would you talk about a book even if you weren't sure that the representation was good just because you loved it so much? Or would it be more important that you know that the representation is good before you recommend a book? But I'm very curious to hear what all of you have to say. Yeah, that was it for this video. And as always, I hope you enjoyed, and please leave a like and subscribe if you haven't. Until next time, good reading. Bye.